Imagine for a moment you're a parent in a small town, the kind of place where kids still ride their bikes to their aunt's house just a few blocks away. You know a simpler time when the world felt a little safer. Well, in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, this idyllic image was shattered in April of 2022. A 10-year-old girl, Lily Peters, went for a bike ride and never came home.
It's a case that really just strikes at the heart of every parent's fear, that idea that a child can just vanish from such a familiar setting in, broad daylight. It's terrifying.
And that's exactly why we're diving deep into this case today.
Yeah.
We're going to explore the events that led to Lily's disappearance and her tragic death, the shocking arrest of her 14-year-old cousin Carson, and really the complexities of juvenile crime that this case brings to light. We have access to police statements, court documents, and firsthand accounts from people who lived through this ordeal. So our goal is to kind of piece together this puzzle, understand what went wrong, and maybe glean some insights that might help all of us better protect our children and our communities.
What's so striking about this case is how it really just shattered this sense of normalcy in a small town. Chippewa Falls is the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and kids play freely in the streets. It's like Lily's disappearance was this brutal wake-up call. A reminder that even in these most seemingly idyllic settings, evil can still find a foothold.
So let's start by retracing Lily's steps on that Sunday. It was April 24th, 2022. Lily went to visit her aunt's house. It was only a quarter of a mile away, about 4 blocks a distance. She'd probably biked countless times before.
Right.
It was a route so familiar it probably felt as safe as her own backyard.
And that's what makes it so unsettling. It wasn't this long journey through unfamiliar territory. It was a short trip to a relative's house, a place where she should have felt safe and secure. The fact that she could vanish so quickly, so close to home, it speaks to the randomness and the unpredictability of this tragedy.
So around 9 p.m. that evening, Lily's father reported her missing. The police immediately launched a search. They were joined by a wave of concerned community members. They actually found her bike near a wooded area and a walking trail close to her aunt's house, but Lily was nowhere to be found.
You can only imagine the fear and desperation that gripped the town as the hours ticked by. Every parent's worst nightmare was playing out in real time, and the discovery of her bike only heightened that anxiety. It suggested that something had gone terribly wrong.
Yeah. The search continued through the night, fueled by this desperate hope that Lily would be found safe. But tragically, just 12 hours after she was reported missing, her body was discovered in the woods near that same trail.
The discovery of her body confirmed the community's worst fears. This wasn't just a missing child case, it was now a homicide investigation. And the rumors and speculation that had been swirling around town, they only intensified, fueling this sense of panic and distrust.
Right. People were urged to be extra vigilant to keep their children close. Parents were understandably terrified, questioning the safety of their own neighborhoods, the places that they once considered safe havens.
It's a natural reaction to a horrific event like this. That sense of security is just shattered, and it's replaced by this gnawing fear that it could happen again, that their own children could be next.
Then, amidst the fear and uncertainty, came a break in the case. After receiving over 200 tips, authorities issued a search warrant for Lily's aunt's house, and the person they arrested sent shockwaves through the community, a 14-year-old boy.
This is where the case takes an even darker turn. The suspect isn't a stranger lurking in the shadows, it's someone Lily knew, someone she should have been able to trust, her own cousin Carson.
And that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive. We'll delve into Carson's chilling confession and really the complexities of this case. We'll explore the potential factors that might have contributed to his actions, the challenges of understanding juvenile crime, and the difficult questions this case raises about family trust and the potential for darkness in these unexpected places.
Okay.
So we left off with the arrest of Lily's 14-year-old cousin Carson. What exactly did he tell investigators when they questioned him?
Well, the details that emerged from his confession were very disturbing. He admitted to luring Lily to that trail, striking her multiple times with a stick, and then strangling her.
It's just hard to fathom that level of violence, especially considering, the victim was his own cousin, someone he presumably knew and interacted with regularly.
Right, and what's particularly chilling is the premeditation involved. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment act of aggression. This was a planned attack, something that he thought out in advance. And it really adds another layer of complexity to this already disturbing case.
And the brutality didn't end there, right? Didn't Carson also admit to sexually assaulting Lily after she was already dead?
Yes. That aspect of the case is especially hard to comprehend. It's just a profound lack of empathy, a complete disregard for another human being. It's unsettling.
His actions after the assault are equally disturbing. He went home, showered, changed his clothes, and acted like nothing had happened. And then later, when he learned people were searching for Lily, he went back to the woods, moved her body, and covered it with leaves.
Those actions, they suggest a level of calculation and deception that's really unusual even for someone involved in a crime this horrific. It's almost as if he was trying to cover his tracks, to distance himself from the reality of what he had done.
And there's another detail that adds to the disturbing nature of this case. Carson actually confessed to his younger sister, even threatened her if she told anyone. And he was also seen at Lily's vigil, seemingly comforting his family.
That behavior, if true, points to a really disturbing level of manipulation and a possible lack of remorse. It's this stark reminder that even in the face of such tragedy, individuals are capable of incredible deception.
So how do we even begin to understand what could drive a 14-year-old to commit such a heinous act? As we dig deeper into the case, we uncover this crucial piece of information. Carson's father, Adam Berger, is a convicted pedophile.
This family history is a significant factor to consider. Not as an excuse for Carson's actions, but as a potential piece of the puzzle. It raises questions about the environment Carson was raised in, the potential exposure to disturbing material or ideas, and the psychological impact a parent's criminal behavior can have on a child's development.
And we learned that Adam Berger had written a letter from prison requesting unsupervised visits with Carson, claiming that his son wasn't happy without him. He even referred to Carson as the best of him. It's a chilling detail considering the nature of his crimes.
Absolutely. It raises the question. Could Carson have been exposed to inappropriate content or conversations? Could his father's criminal behavior have normalized certain behaviors or desensitized him to violence? These are difficult questions to confront, but they're essential in trying to understand the roots of Carson's actions.
And then adding another layer of complexity to the family dynamics is the fact that Carson's paternal grandmother, who had gained grandparents' rights while Adam was in prison, reportedly blamed Lily's mother for limiting Carson's interactions with his father's family. It seems like there was a significant amount of tension and resentment within this family.
Family dynamics play such a crucial role in a child's development. The presence of conflict, instability, and these unhealthy attachments, it can create a toxic environment that might contribute to behavioral issues. While we can't draw a direct causal link between these family dynamics and Carson's actions, it's an important factor to consider when trying to understand the context of this tragedy.
So where does all of this leave us? Carson was initially charged as an adult, but his defense attorneys are arguing that he should be tried as a juvenile.
Right, and this brings up this complex legal question with no easy answers. Should a 14-year-old be held to the same level of accountability as an adult, especially when considering the potential for rehabilitation?
The defense is focusing on Carson's age and potential mental health challenges. They brought in experts to testify about his possible autism spectrum disorder, suggesting that it could have impaired his judgment and impulse control.
It's important to understand what autism spectrum disorder entails. It's a developmental disability that can affect communication, social interaction, and behavior. Individuals with autism may have difficulty understanding social cues, regulating their emotions, and controlling their impulses.
So the defense is arguing that Carson's potential autism, combined with his age and the influence of his father's criminal history, should be mitigating factors when deciding how to proceed with the case.
Exactly. They believe that sending Carson to a juvenile facility where he can receive therapy and support tailored to his specific needs would be more beneficial than incarceration in an adult prison, which could be detrimental to his development and rehabilitation.
But the prosecution is pushing back, aren't they?
Yes, they are adamant that the brutality of the crime, the premeditation involved, and the sexual assault demand accountability and justice for Lily. They argue that moving the case to juvenile court would minimize the severity of Carson's actions and send the wrong message.
So it's this really difficult situation with strong arguments on both sides. How do you balance the need for justice with the potential for rehabilitation, especially when dealing with a minor who may have been influenced by factors beyond their control?
It's a question that courts grapple with constantly, and there's no easy answer. Each case has to be evaluated on its own merits, taking into account a multitude of factors.
Are there any similar cases that might provide insight into how this could play out?
There are a couple of cases that offer interesting parallels, though it's important to remember that each case is unique. One is the case of Jasmine Richardson in Canada. She was 12 years old when she, along with her 23-year-old boyfriend, murdered her family.
Wow, that's incredibly young. How was she sentenced?
She was sentenced to 10 years, the maximum sentence for a youth convicted of first-degree murder at the time. Many people felt the sentence was too lenient, considering the horrific nature of her crimes.
And then there's the case of Aiden Fucci, right? He was also 14 when he brutally murdered his classmate in Florida.
Yes. Aiden Cucci's case garnered national attention partly due to the brutality of the crime, and partly because he was ultimately sentenced to life in prison. This case sparked a huge debate about whether such a harsh sentence is appropriate for a juvenile, even in a case as serious as this.
So we have these two contrasting examples. One, where the sentence is seen as too lenient, the other is extremely harsh. It really highlights the complexities involved in these types of cases and the lack of a one-size-fits-all approach.
Absolutely. There's no simple formula to apply here. The judge in Carson's case has to weigh a multitude of factors: the nature of the crime, the defendant's age and maturity level, the potential for rehabilitation, the risk to public safety, and the need for accountability.
And in Carson's case, the judge hasn't ruled yet, right?
That's right. The decision is expected soon, and it will have a profound impact not only on Carson's future, but also on how we, as a society, grapple with the complexities of juvenile crime and the often conflicting goals of punishment and rehabilitation.
It's a case that leaves us with more questions than answers. How could a 14-year-old be capable of such calculated cruelty, especially towards a family member? What role did his father's criminal history play? And how can we as a society prevent tragedies like this from happening again?
These are questions that demand our attention, not just in the context of this specific case, but in our broader conversations about family dynamics, mental health, the justice system, and the challenges of raising children in a world where darkness can sometimes lurk in the most unexpected places.
We left off discussing the two contrasting cases of Jasmine Richardson and Aiden Fucci, both involving young offenders who committed horrific crimes. It seems like there's just no easy answer when it comes to sentencing, especially in cases involving minors. What's the judge's role in all this? How do they balance the need for justice with the possibility of rehabilitation for someone like Carson?
Well, it's a very complex decision-making process. The judge has to consider a wide range of factors, starting with the severity of the crime itself. And, in this case, we're talking about premeditated murder and sexual assault, which obviously weigh very heavily on the side of accountability and punishment.
But then there's the issue of Carson's age and his potential mental health challenges, right?
Yeah.
How much weight do those factors carry in the judge's decision?
Oh, it's significant, but it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
The defense has presented expert testimony about Carson's possible autism spectrum disorder, arguing that it could have affected his judgment and impulse control.
So for those of us who aren't really familiar with autism spectrum disorder, could you explain a bit more about what it means and how it might be relevant in this case?
Sure. Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability that impacts communication, social interaction, and behavior. It's a spectrum, meaning it affects people in different ways and to varying degrees. Some individuals with autism may have difficulty understanding social cues, regulating their emotions, or thinking through the consequences of their actions.
Got it. So the defense is essentially arguing that Carson's potential autism, combined with his age and the influence of his father's criminal history, should be considered mitigating factors when determining his sentence.
Precisely. They're advocating for a sentence that focuses on rehabilitation, arguing that Carson would benefit more from treatment and support in a juvenile facility rather than harsh punishment in an adult prison.
But the prosecution is pushing back hard on that, right?
Yeah.
They're saying that the brutality of the crime demands serious consequences, regardless of Carson's age or potential mental health issues.
That's right. They're emphasizing the need for justice for Lily and her family, and they're very concerned that sending Carson to a juvenile facility would minimize the severity of his actions. They're arguing that the punishment should fit the crime and serve as a deterrent to others.
It's a tough situation for the judge to be in. There are strong arguments on both sides. How do you think this might play out?
It's hard to say for sure. The judge has a lot to consider, and the decision will have far-reaching implications. If Carson is tried as an adult and convicted, he could face a very lengthy prison sentence. If he's tried as a juvenile, the focus will shift to rehabilitation and treatment, with the goal of reintegrating him into society eventually.
This case really highlights the complexities of the justice system, especially when it comes to young offenders. It forces us to grapple with these difficult questions about accountability, punishment, and the potential for rehabilitation.
And it reminds us that there are no easy answers. Every case is unique, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Ultimately, the goal is to find a balance between protecting society and ensuring that young people who make terrible mistakes have a chance to learn from them and turn their lives around.
This deep dive has been incredibly challenging, but it's also been illuminating. It's exposed us to the dark realities that can exist even in seemingly safe communities. And it's forced us to confront these difficult questions about human behavior, family dynamics, and the limits of our justice system.
We've explored the chilling details of Lily Peters' murder, delved into the troubled background of her 14-year-old cousin Carson, and examined the legal arguments surrounding his upcoming trial. It's a case that leaves us with a sense of unease, a profound sadness for the loss of such a young life.
But as we wrap up, I think it's important to remember that knowledge is power. By understanding the complexities of these issues, by engaging in open and honest conversations, and by supporting initiatives that address the root causes of violence and crime, we can work together to create a safer world for future generations.
We encourage you to continue exploring the resources we've provided in the show notes. They offer valuable insights into juvenile crime, the impact of parental incarceration, the challenges of rehabilitation, and the resources available to support families and communities.
Thank you for joining us on this difficult journey. We hope this deep dive has prompted reflection, sparked conversations, and maybe even inspired action. Together, we can make a difference.